H.P. Lovecraft has had a massive influence on horror, fantasy, and science fiction. Even if you've never read any of his work, you've probably still heard of some of his creations, like Cthulhu, Dagon, Nyarlathotep, Shub, not saying that. Despite that, adapting his work into a video game has always been a challenge. The main issue is that most of his stories are about some guy losing his mind after encountering some kind of weird creature, which is usually described as indescribable, unknowable, and unimaginable, and yeah, good luck portraying an unimaginable horror in your original Xbox game. The Sinking City is the latest game to try and do Lovecraft justice. I've been looking forward to this game ever since it was announced. In fact, besides Ace Combat 7, Borderlands 3, The Last of Us 2, Subnautica Below Zero, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, Total War 3 Kingdoms, Jedi Fallen Order, and Mario Maker 2, it was my most anticipated game this year. The Sinking City takes place in the fictional town of Oakmont, which has recently been hit by a massive flood that submerged half the city and also totally doesn't have anything to do with Cthulhu. You play as Detective Charles Reed, who's been having some weird visions lately and hopes he can find the source of them in Oakmont. Right off the bat, I was impressed. Within 5 minutes of starting the game, they're already hitting you with the yellow guy, Innsmouthers, Monkey Man, and you uncover even more Mythos references as you play. The city looks pretty good, and the lighting and weather effects really add to the mood of a doomed city wasting away. As you slowly steer your boat down a submerged street at night with ominous music playing in the background, you really start to appreciate Oakmont's delightfully oppressive atmosphere, which is exactly what I wanted out of this game. The Sinking City absolutely nails the feeling of being inside of one of the haunted, rundown coastal towns ripped right off the pages of Lovecraft's works. There's just one problem. The game sucks. This being a detective game, the typical gameplay loop consists of getting a case, talking to a guy, going to a building, and holding down your Witcher senses until you click on all the highlighted objects. Sometimes you have to use your see back in time powers to place some events in order in a short puzzle, but it's usually stuff like guy heard noise, guy picked up gun, guy shot intruder, like what order could that possibly go in? Once you gather all the evidence from a certain area, you use a feature called the Mind Palace to combine certain clues to make deductions about the case. There's often more than one final conclusion you can come to based on how you interpret the evidence. This part is actually pretty fun, but gathering the evidence to do it is pretty tedious, especially when most of the buildings you enter make you fight a bunch of monsters. Combat in this game consists of using a pistol, shotgun, rifle, and SMG to shoot the same 3 or 4 mobs over and over again. You can try to sneak past the monsters too, but it's way easier to just face roll them with a shotgun and move on. There's also a sanity meter, which goes down the more time you spend looking at monsters and certain other things. All it really does is distort the camera a little bit and make some GIFs pop up on the side of your screen. Now, all of that's pretty standard, but there are a few aspects of the game which seem specifically designed to waste your time. Whenever somebody tells you to go somewhere, you have to manually place a marker on your map by opening it up and finding the street they're talking about. The first time I did this, I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. The 30th time I did it, I wanted to die. There's way too much traveling in this game too, like 30% of my playtime was just me sprinting or driving my boat to the next objective, and the more time you spend traveling, the more your immersion is ruined by the wandering NPCs whose pathfinding has more bugs than the average Lovecraft sentence has adjectives. Let's talk voice acting real quick. The vast majority of NPCs are fine, and some are even really good, but your main guy sounds like somebody doing a Solid Snake impression.
Well, like I said, I'm a PI. Finding people is kind of my specialty.
The actor does do a fine job, but once I realized this, I couldn't really take him seriously for the rest of the game, which is a shame because the story's really good. But when I snapped back into the gameplay portion, I immediately felt demotivated by the prospect of traveling all the way across town just to go inside another abandoned building, fight more of the same monsters, and click on some highlighted objects to progress the plot. Overall, I have mixed feelings on The Sinking City. It's clear that the developers were really passionate about this idea, but whether it was due to time or monetary constraints, they couldn't quite pull it off. Piecing together clues and discovering the mysteries of Oakmont is fun, but the actual gameplay involved in gathering said clues is really boring. So on a scale of the horror at Red Hook to the color out of space, The Sinking City gets the lurking fear, and if that scale actually makes sense to you, then you'll probably like this game.
It's beginning to look a lot like fishmen everywhere I go. From the minute I got to town and started to look around, I thought these ill-bred people's gill slits showed.